Okay, so let's unpack this. Picture this, right? You're in a country late at night, maybe scrolling through your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you stumble on this beauty influencer, someone you follow,
Yeah.
you know, all glam like usual.
Okay.
But then you see she's sharing some really, like, intense stuff. Posts hitting out at the government, saying everything's corrupt, and, oh yeah, how great things are over in C country.
Huh. That sounds a little odd for a beauty influencer, maybe.
Totally. And then you notice, wait a sec, it's not just her. There are hundreds of other accounts, kind of random looking, posting the exact same messages, word for word sometimes.
Okay, so it's coordinated.
Feels like it. Like someone somewhere is, pulling a lot of strings, trying to make people in a country doubt everything. Their government, each other.
And that scale and coordination you're describing, that's what's really fascinating and frankly alarming. It suggests something more than just random discontent. It feels strategic.
Definitely. Now let's kind of zoom over to C country for a second. Imagine this like high-tech room, screens glowing everywhere.
The command center type thing?
Yeah, exactly. And there's this guy, Lucas, a strategist, and he's got a whole team, data scientists, linguists, AI experts, even psychologists.
Wow, quite the lineup.
Their whole job to influence a country's upcoming election. And the game plan is basically sow distrust, make people lose faith.
In their own system.
Right, in their leaders, in each other, the whole 9 yards. So they're feeding this AI all the hot topics. Healthcare issues, young people feeling let down, foreign aid being useless.
Targeting specific societal anxieties.
Precisely. Then bam, they're launching stuff. Edited fake videos, planting influencers on platforms, setting up fake grassroots forums and chat groups, making it look like real people talking.
That multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Using different platforms, different tactics, hitting those vulnerabilities, it really shows how sophisticated these influence operations have become. It's not random.
No, very targeted. And the scenario ends with this video going viral in a country. It's blurry, it looks kind of shaky, right? It's just a doctor crying, saying they don't have supplies.
Oh, man, that hits hard.
Totally. And the comments just explode. Corruption. See? See, country would let this happen. What's the point of even voting?
Yeah, I can imagine the reaction.
But here's the kicker. That video, it's actually 3 years old, from a different country altogether.
No way.
Yeah. Faked, edited, and then pushed out by algorithms targeting younger people, like 18 to 35-year-olds.
And what's the effect on them?
Well, instead of just being angry, they get kind of disillusioned, apathetic. You see comments shift towards, what's the point? Can't trust anything anyway.
That's insidious, undermining faith itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it leads to this really chilling thought. When a nation's people no longer trust each other, no longer trust the system, even no longer trust reality itself, then sovereignty isn't lost on paper. It's lost in the mind.
That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The ultimate goal isn't necessarily a military takeover. It's eroding that internal cohesion, making a society vulnerable from the inside by destroying trust.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Sip and Talk. So today we're digging into the real-world versions of scenarios just like that one, the whole issue of foreign influence ops on social media.
Yeah, and it's not just hypothetical anymore.
Not at all. We're looking at some pretty serious stuff that's come out recently, including some explosive testimony from a former Meta executive, and also these ongoing concerns about TikTok. You shared some really eye-opening articles.
Right.
And our mission today is basically to unpack all this. What does it actually mean for, national security?
And I think it's crucial for listeners to grasp that these things we see online, maybe an odd post here or a weird video there, they might actually be pieces of a much larger coordinated puzzle with real geopolitical stakes.
Absolutely. So let's start with those Facebook hearings. Meta, obviously. Yeah. There was this former global policy director, Sarah Wynne Williams. She testified before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee and made some pretty bombshell claims, alleging that Mark Zuckerberg himself, the founder, personally led efforts to, appease the Chinese government.
Appease them how?
To get market access, basically. And this reportedly included developing censorship tools specifically for places like Hong Kong and Taiwan.
Wow. Okay, that immediately flags some major ethical questions, doesn't it? A huge tech company potentially bending on free expression just to get into a market.
Right. Wynne Williams basically framed it as Meta being willing to sacrifice American values, even national security, for profit.
And was there a figure attached to that profit?
Yeah, she pointed to a reported $18.3 billion in revenue from China. That's through their apps, but also Oculus VR.
Okay, 18 billion. That's certainly a significant number. It does suggest a powerful motive if the allegations hold up.
And she stressed Zuckerberg's personal involvement. We're talking trips to Beijing, meetings with high-ranking officials. Someone named Liu Wei was mentioned.
So not delegated down the chain. This was allegedly top-level strategy.
That was the claim, which, underscores how important they apparently saw this Chinese market access.
And the potential level of compromise involved.
Now, here's where it gets really sticky. Remember back in 2018, Zuckerberg testified before Congress.
Vaguely, yeah, about Cambridge Analytica and other things.
Right. And during that, he basically said he didn't know much about Chinese censorship demands because, well, Facebook's been blocked in mainland China since 2009.
Okay.
Wynne Williams is saying, that testimony, a lie, a flat-out lie.
Whoa. Okay, that's a very serious accusation, lying to Congress.
Huge. She claims Meta did build a custom censorship tool for China, and worse, it was already being used in Hong Kong and Taiwan.
Already deployed, even though Facebook isn't operating in mainland China.
Apparently. The system allegedly worked like this. If a post hit over 10,000 views, it got automatically flagged, sent to a chief editor for review, likely using keywords, automated checks.
So a mechanism to monitor and potentially suppress high-visibility content.
Exactly. And here's a crazy detail. She claimed Chinese officials actually got to test this tool and gave Meta feedback on it.
Direct collaboration with Chinese state officials on a censorship tool. That's concerning, especially given its reported use in Hong Kong and Taiwan, places with, historically, more online freedom.
Yeah. And this chief editor role, according to her, had some serious clout. Not just censoring posts, but potentially even shutting down or throttling services in specific areas or during, sensitive political moments.
Like a kill switch, essentially.
Pretty much sounds like it.
Yeah.
That level of potential control, directed by a foreign government, it's worrying.
Absolutely. It raises fundamental questions about platform neutrality and susceptibility to state influence.
And then there's maybe the most alarming claim, that during the Hong Kong pro-democracy protests, Meta was allegedly willing to provide user data to the Chinese government.
Handing over user data in that context, that could put protesters at serious risk.
Huge risk. And you have to wonder, right, if they were sharing data on Chinese users, given how interconnected everything is online, could U.S. user data have somehow gotten caught up in that, maybe indirectly through user interactions?
That's a really important point. Data flows aren't always neatly contained by borders on global platforms. It highlights the potential for spillover effects. A complex web, indeed.
Now, of course, Meta denies all of this. They've called her testimony inaccurate, full of false claims. Standard corporate pushback, maybe?
Understandable they deny it, given the severity.
But Congress isn't just taking their word for it. They've launched an investigation. They even sent Zuckerberg a letter demanding his testimony on this. So clearly, they're taking it seriously.
The congressional action definitely signals that policymakers see significant potential national security risks here that need clarification.
And just to add another layer, Wynne Williams wrote a whole book about this called Careless People. And apparently Meta's lawyers tried to shut her down legally after it came out.
Attempts to silence a whistleblower often raise more questions, don't they? About transparency and what they might not want discussed.
Definitely feels that way. Okay, so that's the Meta situation, or at least the allegations. Let's pivot now and talk about TikTok. Different platform, different company, but some overlapping national security themes.
Right. And the conversation around TikTok has been going on for a while, but maybe focused initially on slightly different aspects.
Yeah, the early freakout was mostly about personal data. Right. Like, are they collecting our info? Where's it going?
That was certainly the dominant concern, and it's a valid one for almost any social media app, frankly. The amount of personal data collected is vast.
But this Rand commentary you sent over brings up something else, something I hadn't really thought about as much. It's not just personal data, it's the publicly posted videos. TikTok apparently gets something like 34 million new public videos uploaded every single day.
It's an astronomical amount of visual data.
And the argument is, this makes TikTok basically a gold mine, the perfect training ground for developing really advanced deepfake AI.
Exactly. This is a critical risk that sometimes gets lost in the privacy debate. The sheer volume, the specific format. It's uniquely valuable for training generative AI models that create synthetic media.
They gave this wild example in the piece, a deepfake scam, where AI faked a CFO's voice and appearance in Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
and tricks someone into authorizing a $25 million wire transfer.
$25 million. Wow. Okay, so this isn't just about funny face-swapping apps. This tech has serious malicious potential.
For sure. And the scary thing is, these deepfakes are getting better and better, harder to spot. So imagine the national security implications. Adversaries being able to make convincing fake videos of, well, anyone. Political leaders, military officials, saying or doing anything.
The potential for disinformation, for destabilization, for undermining trust in anything visual, it's immense. It could fundamentally alter how we perceive reality presented online.
So the piece argues, look, we're controlling semiconductor exports, right? Trying to limit foreign AI hardware capabilities.
Big export controls.
But what about the data? The stuff that fuels the AI? We need to look at the cross-border flow of bulk data, especially from platforms like TikTok. It's like trying to stop a car by taking the tires, but leaving the gas tank full and the keys in the ignition.
That's a really good analogy. Hardware is one choke point, but the massive data sets needed for training are arguably just as critical, if not more so, for cutting-edge AI development.
Now, TikTok has this whole Project Texas initiative, right? Storing U.S. user data on U.S.-based servers managed by Oracle.
Yes, designed to address some of those data security and access concerns.
But the commentary points out a key distinction. Project Texas mainly covers protected user data. These millions of publicly posted videos, they might not be subject to the same restrictions. They could still end up on servers overseas.
That is a crucial loophole. If the goal is to prevent sensitive data from being accessed abroad, publicly posted content, especially in bulk, needs to be part of that equation.
And there's more. The article highlights how TikTok's data is kind of unique. It's massive volume, sure, but also its uniformity. Almost everything's that vertical 9.16 video format.
Right, a consistent format.
Plus, TikTok puts those unique watermarks on videos, making it harder for other companies to just scrape the data easily.
So it creates a kind of walled garden of training data.
Exactly. It's like this perfect exclusive data set for ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, to train their own AI models, including this advanced one called Megascale. They have this huge advantage because nobody else can easily get that same quality and quantity of data.
That combination, volume, uniformity, and exclusivity through watermarking, really does position ByteDance uniquely in terms of training data for certain types of AI.
And this isn't just theory. The article states flat out, Chinese actors have already used generative AI for disinformation, and they've used TikTok to spread anti-American propaganda within the U.S.
So the threat is active.
Yeah. TikTok even publishes these monthly reports about covert influence ops they uncover. The example given was from May 2024. They found a China-based network, hundreds of thousands of followers, using fake accounts to push narratives about, like, U.S. corruption and how unsafe America is.
Which demonstrates that the platform, regardless of intent, can be exploited for these purposes by state-linked actors.
Which brings us right to that new law, the 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act. It basically forces ByteDance to sell TikTok to an American buyer by January 2025.
Or face a ban in the U.S. app stores.
Right, and TikTok is fighting back, suing the government, claiming it violates the First Amendment.
It's a major legal and political battle.
But the point the Randa commentary makes is, whatever happens to the ban or sale, this bulk data collection for deepfake training needs to be central to the national security discussion. It's not just about who owns the app.
That's a critical perspective. The legal fight might hinge on free speech, but the underlying national security risk linked to the data itself and its potential use for AI needs equal weight.
Totally, because even if TikTok is banned or sold, the article points out there aren't really laws stopping the sale of this kind of bulk audio-visual data overseas anyway.
That's a significant potential gap in regulation. Focusing only on the platform might miss the data asset itself.
Now, to be fair, the piece does mention that, yeah, adversaries could try to misuse American AI platforms too, right? Like Russia or China using ChatGPT or something similar.
Sure, the potential for misuse exists across platforms.
But the key difference, it argues, is that companies like OpenAI or Meta, they're based here. They're subject to U.S. laws and regulations. There's even proposed legislation to watermark AI-generated content from U.S. companies.
So there's a framework for oversight and accountability, at least theoretically, that might not exist with a foreign-controlled entity operating under a different legal and political system.
Exactly. There's at least some leverage. Okay, so let's try and tie these threads together now. Meta, TikTok. What's the bigger picture here for national security when we look at social media overall? We're seeing patterns, right?
Absolutely. While the specifics differ, the underlying themes of data, influence, and potential state manipulation are common across these examples and represent broader vulnerabilities in the digital ecosystem.
So thinking back to Meta, you have the alleged, let me try the Chinese, U Juat Yanlun Xinjia.
Censorship.
Right, censorship. And
Cooperating with the Chinese government.
Cooperating with the Chinese government, including allegedly building those tools for Taiwan and Hong Kong, and that willingness to hand over user data.
Which, if true, points to a major U.S. company potentially facilitating state control over information and surveillance, directly impacting users in sensitive regions. That's a huge national security concern.
And then, layered on top of that, the worry that Meta might even indirectly be helping China develop its AI capabilities. That's not just about online arguments. That's about potentially shifting the technological balance.
The transfer of knowledge, technology, or even facilitating access to data that aids a strategic competitor's AI development is definitely a national security consideration.
Okay, then shifting to TikTok. The big red flags there are the data collection practices and its potential use as a tool for Chinese government influence and, what was the term?
Deny lethal.
Yeah, large-scale external propaganda, basically shaping narratives favorable to the Chinese state for audiences outside China.
And that study you mentioned, the NCRI one, seemed to back this up, didn't it? Showing way more pro-China content or less anti-China content on TikTok compared to other platforms for sensitive searches, like Xinjiang, Uyghurs, Tibet, Tiananmen.
Yes, the Network Contagion Research Institute study found significant discrepancies. When users search for these sensitive terms, the ratio of pro-Beijing hashtags versus critical hashtags was found to be dramatically higher on TikTok compared to, say, Instagram, which strongly suggests some kind of algorithmic shaping or content moderation bias at play.
So it's not just blocking stuff, it's also potentially promoting other stuff. Like the article mentioned, the algorithm seems to push positive things about China, maybe happy tourism videos from...
Yeah.
Right. While potentially downplaying or making it harder to find information about human rights concerns or political repression, it's a subtle, potentially very effective way to influence perception over time. The algorithm acts like a curator or maybe a lens, focusing attention.
Yeah, like a spotlight operator in a theater, deciding what the audience sees clearly.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it often happens without the user consciously realizing their information diet is being curated in that way.
So when you zoom out and look at both Meta's alleged actions and the concerns around TikTok, you see these recurring national security threats popping up across social media. Information manipulation, definitely. Cognitive warfare, messing with how populations think.
Trying to shape beliefs and attitudes on a mass scale, often covertly.
Right. Then there's the straightforward data collection and surveillance risk. Psychological warfare tactics being used online. And the end result seems to be this gradual erosion of trust in media, trust in government, trust in institutions, even trust in each other.
And that erosion of trust is fundamentally destabilizing for democratic societies. These platforms, intentionally or not, become battlegrounds where these vulnerabilities can be exploited. It demands a really comprehensive view of security in the information age.
So, okay, what does this all actually mean for someone just listening to this?
Well, I think it really highlights just how complex and, frankly, how high stakes the digital environment has become for national security.
Yeah, it's not just fun apps anymore, is it?
Yeah.
The stuff we use every day to connect or waste time.
Yeah.
They can actually be vectors for foreign influence, for data harvesting.
With potentially very real consequences. Consequences ranging from subtly manipulated public opinion on key issues, all the way up to enabling the development of dangerous AI capabilities by adversaries.
It forces you to think, right?
Yeah.
Consider the implications of a platform, like the allegations against Meta, potentially censoring info or handing over data to a foreign power. Then think about another platform, like TikTok, just vacuuming up this unprecedented library of, well, us, our behaviors, our faces, our voices in video form, and maybe using its algorithms to gently nudge our perceptions. Is the convenience, the entertainment, is it worth that potential risk?
It's a fundamental tension, isn't it, between the undeniable benefits and connectivity these technologies offer and the potential costs to our privacy, our security, and even the integrity of our democratic processes. There aren't easy answers.
No, definitely not. And it raises that huge question. How do we balance this? How do we get the good stuff from tech without opening the door to all these risks? What's the government's role? What about the tech companies themselves? And what can we do as individuals?
It really has to be a multi-layered approach, doesn't it? You need thoughtful regulation, sure. You need tech companies to take more responsibility, absolutely. But you also need greater awareness and digital literacy among citizens.
Yeah. It's not just about ban TikTok or don't ban TikTok. That feels almost too simple. It's about understanding the much bigger underlying issues around data, influence, and power in the 21st century.
Precisely. The platform is just the interface. The real issues are deeper.
So maybe some food for thought for everyone listening. Perhaps do a little digging into this concept of cognitive security. How does that idea connect to what we've been talking about today?
That's a great suggestion. Understanding cognitive security, basically. Protecting the ability of individuals and societies to think clearly and make informed decisions despite manipulative influences is becoming increasingly vital.
And thinking about what are some practical ways we can all become a bit more resilient, more savvy about spotting manipulation online, protecting our own thinking in this crazy digital world. Because it's not just about what the platforms do to us, it's also about how we engage with them.